We've all heard the saying, there are 1,000 Hamlets in 1,000 readers' eyes. Today, we're discussing the book, Hamlet. Penned in 1599, it stands as Shakespeare's longest play and is renowned as one of his four great tragedies, alongside Othello, King Lear, and Macbeth. Undoubtedly, among these four tragedies, Hamlet stands out as the most beloved by audiences and readers alike. It's also one of the most adapted stories in cinema, second only to Cinderella. Hamlet has been translated under various titles, with some of the more familiar ones being The Prince's Revenge, Hamlet, and Hamlet. The story follows Prince Hamlet of Denmark, who discovers that his uncle Claudius murdered his father, usurped the throne, and married Hamlet's mother, Gertrude. Hamlet vows to avenge his father's death. Today, let's dive into the Hamlet you've probably heard of, but may not have read. Every story has a code, a key that unlocks its essence. To really understand Hamlet, you need to find that key. In my view, the key is encapsulated in the word fate. How does fate work? Is there such a thing as destiny? Can people defy their fate? Today, we'll explore these questions as we delve into our reading. So, who is Hamlet? He's the Prince of Denmark, the direct heir to the throne. From the moment of his birth, he had everything many people dream of: a great honor, royal favor, and the shelter of his country and parents. He could do anything he wanted. Consequently, Hamlet's life unfolded effortlessly. He studied in Wittenberg, made interesting friends, traveled, and engaged in a romantic relationship with the woman he loved. At the beginning of the story, Hamlet learns by chance about his father's death while studying in Germany. He rushes back to the palace to pay his last respects. But when he arrives, he finds that his uncle has seized the throne and swiftly wed his mother, who only a month after becoming a widow, has remarried. The throne he once envisioned as his own is now beyond his grasp. Let's untangle the relationships. Hamlet's father, Old Hamlet, was the former king. Hamlet's uncle, Claudius, is the new king. Hamlet's mother, Gertrude, was the former queen of Denmark and is now the current queen. The country, the crown, and the queen remain the same, but the person holding all of it has changed, from Hamlet's father to his uncle. Hamlet, who is set to inherit the throne, now finds himself in a very awkward position. He is shocked and cannot accept what has happened. Shakespeare famously writes in the original text, "Frailty, thy name is woman." Within a month ago, she, referring to his mother, was, even before she had broken in the shoes she wore to his funeral, crying like crazy. Even an animal would have mourned its mate longer than she did. There she was marrying my uncle, my father's brother, who's about as much like my father as I'm like Hercules. Less than a month after my father's death, even before the tears on her cheeks had dried, she remarried. Oh, so quick to jump into a bed of incest. That's not good, and no good can come of it either. But my heart must break in silence since I can't mention my feelings aloud. This is a classic Shakespearean long sentence. You can sense this style in the book Palace of Desire, which we discussed earlier. We've also experienced this kind of elaborate language in Shakespeare's other work, Romeo and Juliet. Hamlet cannot come to terms with his mother's actions. He believes that her marriage is incestuous and that it will not end well. As for this surprising union, Hamlet's uncle, the reigning King Claudius, says, Though my memories of my brother Hamlet are still fresh, and though it was proper for me and our entire kingdom to grieve for him, life doesn't stop. And so, while we must remember to mourn for him, it is also wise to remember our happiness. Therefore, with sad joy, with one eye merry and the other crying, with laughter at a funeral and grieving at a wedding, with equal measures of happiness and sadness. I have married my former sister-in-law, who inherited some right of her own to rule this nation, and made her my queen. In Act 1, Scene 2 of the play, after Claudius delivers his speech and deems his explanation sufficient, he moves on to discuss state affairs with his courtiers. Meanwhile, Hamlet, an observer of the wedding, sums up his feelings about the situation. He feels that everything around him has changed, extraordinarily close relatives, indifferent strangers. This is the state Hamlet finds himself in. From being a prince in the limelight with everything going smoothly, he suddenly becomes melancholic and is often consumed by thoughts of suicide. This shift is entirely reasonable given the circumstances. With his strong and vigorous uncle seizing the throne, the prince, momentarily pushed aside and unable to ascend to kingship, feels deeply disheartened. Adding to his distress, his mother's insatiable desires drive her into a hasty remarriage, indulging in unrestrained pleasure with his uncle. This makes him extremely angry. Isn't this scene quite dramatic? Absolutely yes, and the dramatic tension it creates has inspired many works. For example, director Feng Xiaojiang's film The Banquet is essentially a retelling of the Hamlet story. As we continue, we'll uncover numerous classic scenes and emotional depths within this tale. As a prince, Hamlet's attitude toward fate is far from consistent. It fluctuates and at times contradicts itself. He is a deeply conflicted individual, and the upheavals in his family lead him to doubt human nature. In his anger and despair, he comes to believe that fate is capricious. It doesn't favor the virtuous nor condemn the wicked, instead bringing calamity upon those in positions of power. This is a classic example of blaming fate. Hamlet is so consumed by negative emotions that he begins to reject his own country, Denmark. He sees the world as a vast prison with many cells, dungeons, and jails, with Denmark being the worst of them all. To him, everything in Denmark is loathsome, stale, and tedious, like a neglected garden overrun with poisonous weeds. His uncle, the newly crowned King Claudius, is very suspicious of Hamlet. He distrusts him and feels that Hamlet's presence makes him unsafe. Claudius doesn't want Hamlet to return to Germany to continue his studies. Instead, he wants him close by so he can keep a close watch on him. As a result, Hamlet finds himself trapped in Denmark, which he sees as a prison with no escape. Externally, Hamlet is still revered and remains the heir to the throne, but everyone around him, including Hamlet himself, knows that he is in constant danger of losing his life and having nothing left. At this point, his friend Horatio reveals to him something crucial, the truth about his father's death. This revelation sets Hamlet on the path of revenge. Before this, Hamlet was merely wallowing in complaints, pessimism, and despondency, lacking the fervent desire for retribution. So, what did Horatio tell him? He revealed a very mysterious secret. In the dead of night, during his watch duty, he saw a figure in armor for 2 consecutive nights. Hamlet, a figure like your father appeared before us. He strode past with a dignified, unhurried pace, passing by us thrice. His staff almost brushed against us. His staff nearly grazed us, inducing such terror that we were nearly immobilized, rooted in place, unable to utter a word to him. This was the ghost of the former king. The ghost appeared to Hamlet and revealed that he had come to tell him an important truth, the secret of the old king's death. Here's how it's written. Now, Hamlet, listen. The official story is that a poisonous snake bit me while I was sleeping in the orchard. That is a lie that deceives all of Denmark. You noble youth, know that the snake that killed your father is now wearing his crown. Hamlet said, Oh, my far-seeing soul, my uncle. Yes, that incestuous, adulterous beast. With his evil wit and traitorous gifts, a wicked wit and gifts that have the power to seduce, he convinced my seemingly virtuous queen to give in to his lust. Oh, Hamlet, she fell so far from me, who loved her with the dignity that goes hand in hand with my marriage vows, to a wretch whose natural abilities could not compare to mine. But wait. I think I smell the morning air. I must speak quickly. As I was sleeping in the orchard, as I used to do every afternoon, your uncle snuck up and poured a vial of henbane poison into my ear. That poison, which is like a natural enemy of blood, spreads like quicksilver through the veins and curdles the blood. So, it did to mine. I broke instantly into a rash that covered my smooth body with a revolting crust. And so, as I slept, my brother stole my life, my crown, and my queen. If you have any natural feelings of a son for a father in you, don't let this stand. Don't let the bed of the Danish king be a nest of incest. However, if you attempt to get revenge, don't allow your mind or soul to contemplate harming your mother. Leave her fate to God and the sting of her guilt. Goodbye now. The glow of light on the horizon shows that morning is near. Goodbye, goodbye. Hamlet, remember me. This is what the ghost of the old king tells him. He reveals the true cause of his death, exposes his brother's treachery, and shares his anger and forgiveness towards his wife. But the ghost demands that Hamlet kill Claudius to avenge him and set things right in the kingdom of Denmark. That's what the ghost requires. So, what's going on in Hamlet's head? He says to himself, a ghost talking is already quite bizarre. Should I believe it? This is where Hamlet's indecisiveness comes to the fore. Shakespeare sets the ghost's appearance as the trigger for all the drama. Hamlet becomes Hamlet because of this ghost. It tells him a secret, pushes him to seek the truth, ignites his desire for revenge, upholds justice, and changes the status quo. He's given a mission and must live on. This moment marks the start of Hamlet's transformation, beginning with courage. As Professor Luo Xiong once mentioned, courage is a scarce trait among humans, and having the bravery to take responsibility is deeply moving in Hamlet's character. But he wasn't born with it. Shakespeare's brilliance lies in how he writes Hamlet as initially timid and indecisive. He gradually grows up, inch by inch, forced by circumstances. He's dragging himself forward through adversities. Just like every one of us, when faced with reality, he finds it hard to bear. He might want to ignore it and feel powerless to solve it. But what's the way out? There's no turning back. This makes us see how great and real his struggle is. Hamlet's uncle actually made a public promise, saying that Hamlet is still the direct heir to the throne. I will give you honor and favor, like a most loving father to his son. This was essentially his way of winning Hamlet over. But Hamlet refuses to settle for this. He is resolute in his choice to seek the truth, stand for justice, and seek revenge. He says, "It's a topsy-turvy world, and unlucky me has to take on the responsibility of setting things right." This line is interesting. He feels unfortunate and unwilling. A person who gathers the courage to seek revenge still finds it challenging to remain brave. This is very relatable. Despite knowing that he's heading down a thorny path full of risks, Hamlet decides to fight on. This resolve comes from a strong sense of personal responsibility. No matter how fate tortures or even destroys him, he must shoulder it, make choices, and solve the problems himself. Everything can't be left to chance. So, reading Hamlet again this year, I felt a deep sense of melancholy. From this moment, I understand those who are melancholic. They must have many stories. But when a person wants to break free, release their burdens, and completely change themselves, it's truly hard. You could see it as revenge, but who is the true target of this revenge? It's against the multitude of adversities one faces. Back to the story of Hamlet, the path of revenge is not easy. His uncle Claudius has taken the throne, wielding immense power. As a powerless prince, Hamlet has almost no support to fight against Claudius. On the other hand, what evidence does he have? All he knows comes from the ghost's words. So, young Hamlet needs further proof. However, faced with Claudius's intense suspicion, Hamlet opts to feign madness temporarily. Is this a good plan? Hamlet suddenly acts insane. Will his uncle believe it? To figure out if Hamlet is truly mad or just putting on an act, the new King Claudius sends two groups of people to test him. The first group consists of Hamlet's childhood friends, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. It's quite disheartening. People who grew up with him abandon their friendship and willingly accept the king's assignment to find out if Hamlet is really mad and if he has any plans for revenge. There's a passage where Hamlet says, "Given our years of friendship, tell me honestly, what brings you here?" One of the spies replies, "We're here to visit you, my lord, for no other reason." A beggar like me, my thanks aren't worth much, but I do thank you. I think, dear friends, that you coming all this way just to get a thank you from me isn't worth it. Didn't someone send you here? Is this truly your own idea? Did you really come here on your own? Come, don't lie to me, come on, tell me. So, Hamlet's logic is quite sharp here. Under his pressure, the two men admit, "My lord, we were sent for." Hamlet then says, "I'll tell you why. That way you won't have to reveal anything, and you can preserve the secrecy you promised to the king and queen. Lately, for reasons I don't know, I've lost all my joy, stopped exercising, and feel so depressed that the entire world seems to be empty to me. This beautiful canopy, the sky, look at it, this splendid overarching sky, a majestic roof adorned with golden sunlight. Why, to me, it seems like nothing more than a foul collection of diseased air. What a masterpiece each human is. How noble in his ability to think, how unlimited in abilities, how attractive in his body and movement, how angelic in action, how godlike in understanding. The most beautiful thing in the world. The perfect ideal, standing above all other animals. And yet, for me, what are humans like, except dust? Men don't delight me. No, women neither, though your smiles seem to suggest that's what you were thinking. All this endless, rambling nonsense does sound a bit crazy, so what is he trying to say? The two of them were left bewildered. It's like that saying, there are two things you can't look at directly, the sun and the human heart. Hamlet is indeed on the brink of madness, at his lowest point in life. Yet, instead of receiving concern and help from friends, he faces betrayal and exploitation from those he once trusted. So, after this round of testing, is Hamlet truly insane? Claudius remains uncertain, but he feels uneasy. So, he sends a second group of people, one of whom is special. She's a kind-hearted young woman named Ophelia, the daughter of the courtier Polonius. Anyone familiar with Hamlet knows that Ophelia is beautiful and charming, and she and Hamlet are in love. However, Ophelia's father is a greedy man. When Hamlet's father was still king, he tacitly encouraged and even supported their relationship, seeing it as beneficial to him. But when the new king Claudius took the throne, he saw Prince Hamlet as a dangerous threat and immediately demanded that his daughter distance herself from Hamlet. Now the new king needs someone to test Hamlet, and this father shamelessly decides to use his daughter as bait. Thus, Hamlet is the epitome of tragedy, showcasing the fragility and unreliability of human nature to such an extent that it can be disheartening. What can we trust? The tragedy of Hamlet and Ophelia is a crucial element in the play, adding to its allure. Hamlet has always loved Ophelia deeply. When he was still a prince, he wrote her many love letters, some of which were very beautiful, saying, "You may doubt that the stars are fire, doubt that the sun moves across the sky, doubt if the truth is a liar, but never doubt my love." However, Ophelia is a gentle and obedient girl who follows her father's and brother's advice, succumbs to family pressure, and keeps her distance from Hamlet. So, the queen says, let Ophelia see if Hamlet is really mad. Ophelia stages a chance encounter with Hamlet to test him. Initially, their pure love is jeopardized by external pressures, manipulation by malevolent forces, and, crucially, the flaws within human nature. Observing these two individuals, seemingly perfect for each other and deeply in love, one might anticipate a positive outcome. Yet, it tragically unravels step by step. Reflecting on it reveals that there are underlying reasons for this deterioration. In the original text, Shakespeare writes, Ophelia meets Hamlet and says, "My good lord, how have you been doing these last few days?" "Thank you for asking. Well, well, well. My lord, I have some mementos of yours that I've been wanting to return to you for a while. Please take them back." "No, it wasn't me. I never gave you anything." "My honorable lord, you know very well that you did. And along with these gifts, you wrote letters with words so sweet that they made the gifts seem even more valuable. But now the joy they brought me is gone, so please take them back. Beautiful gifts lose their value when the givers turn out to be unkind. There, my lord." At this moment, Ophelia wants to know if Hamlet still loves her. Even though she was sent by her father to test Hamlet, she still has genuine feelings for him. What she cares most about is whether he is mad or sane, he still loves her. So, how does Hamlet respond? He laughs and asks Ophelia, "Are you pure?" Ophelia is startled. "My lord, are you beautiful?" Ophelia is even more shocked. "What do you mean, my lord?" Hamlet then says that if you're pure and beautiful, your purity should be unconnected to your beauty. Why? Ophelia doesn't understand. Could beauty be related to anything better than purity? Hamlet says, yes, definitely. because the power of beauty is more likely to change a good girl into a whore than the power of purity is likely to change a beautiful girl into a virgin. This used to be a great puzzle, but now I've solved it. I used to love you. At this point, Ophelia suddenly becomes a bit emotional. Yes, my lord, you made me believe you did. But Hamlet immediately becomes very cold and tells her, you shouldn't have believed me. No matter how hard we try to be virtuous, our natural sinfulness will always come out in the end. I didn't love you. Why does Hamlet deny his love for Ophelia? Why does he so easily cast this girl into darkness? It's because Hamlet knows he has to fight against Ophelia's father, the connections behind him, and the new king. So, he is in great pain and needs to distance himself from Ophelia. He tells Ophelia, your father get locked in and you get yourself to a convent. If you must get married, marry a fool. Ophelia, unable to bear this, starts crying and prays, Dear God, make him sane again. Ophelia believes Hamlet is truly mad because he is no longer the man who once loved her. As a result, Ophelia's father and brother are convinced that the prince is indeed mad and that his madness is caused by the heartbreak of love, as Ophelia's distance from him has greatly upset Hamlet. However, King Claudius remains suspicious and uneasy. After these tests, Hamlet is not idle. He meticulously plans a play to determine whether the ghost's claims are true or just lies. What does he do? He stages a play. During a royal celebration and performance, Hamlet invites actors to stage the murder described by the ghost of the old king. He arranges the play to be performed at court and instructs his good friend Horatio to closely observe the new king's reaction. This scene is quite dramatic. In the play, the actors portray the old king sleeping in the garden, then a villain sneaks in and poisons him. Seeing this, King Claudius turns pale. Hamlet, who has been observing coldly, can now be sure that the ghost's words are true. This new king, his uncle, is indeed the murderer. Hamlet says, Horatio, the ghost didn't deceive me. Did you see? His loyal friend replies, Yes, my lord, I saw it. The truth is revealed. However, the performance threatens the new king. Claudius, the cold-blooded usurper, feels that Hamlet has discovered something. Thus, he plans to immediately send Hamlet to England and use the English king to have him eliminated, to prevent future threats. Hamlet now faces a more treacherous and dangerous situation. How will he escape and seek revenge? Soon, an opportunity arises, a perfect chance for revenge. In Act 3, Scene 3 of the play, Hamlet finally gets a good opportunity for retribution. After watching the play, King Claudius is deeply troubled and moved. He begins to retreat, kneeling alone to pray and repent. Hamlet, seeing this, realizes he could take advantage of the moment and kill his uncle from behind to avenge his father. But he hesitates. The text reads, Now I could do it. Now as he's praying. And now I'll do it. And so he'll go to heaven, and I'll have my revenge. Wait, that needs more thought. So, do I get revenge if I kill Claudius while he's praying and confessing his sins so that he's all set to go right up to heaven? No. Go away, sword, and wait for a more horrid moment to kill him. When he's drunk and asleep, or partying, or having incestuous sex, or swearing and gambling, or doing some other thing that has no trace of heaven in it, then I'll kill him, so that his heels kick up toward heaven while his damned, black soul falls straight down to hell. When I first read this passage, I found it very frustrating. Why not just avenge your father and kill him? Why all this hesitation? This is the charm of Shakespeare. As a young man who has been overly sheltered, Hamlet draws his sword but cannot bring himself to strike. Why? Because he hesitates. He finds it difficult to decide to kill, so he makes excuses and misses the chance to kill Claudius. This is very real. Even when we resolve to do something, like confess our feelings or speak in public, we still find it hard to act. We might apologize, open our mouths several times, and muster all our courage, but still fail. We might pace before a speech and feel anxious. Even when you gather your courage and make a decision, you might still struggle like Hamlet, facing significant obstacles. For Hamlet, revenge is not a joyous task. It is, in fact, extremely painful. This internal struggle profoundly reveals true human nature. In this scene, Hamlet delivers the famous line, "To be or not to be, that is the question. To live or not to live, that is the question. To endure or to confront, that is the question. Which is more noble, to suffer the relentless ravages of fate, or to rise and end the suffering? To die, to sleep, that's a great relief if sleep could end the heartache and the thousands of pains our flesh endures. But to sleep, perhaps to dream, this is the problem. Even if we escape this world, what dreams may come in that sleep? This very doubt torments us throughout our lives. This part of Hamlet touches us deeply because it delves into the fundamental struggles of being human. It captures the confusion, hesitation, and difficulties people face when making choices. Hamlet's character is iconic not because he's a hero who avenges his father with a decisive strike, but because he wants to be a hero yet struggles with cowardice, indecision, and vulnerability. His choices in this harsh world are incredibly challenging. If Hamlet chose death, he could escape all responsibilities and revenge, as you can't ask a dead person to do anything. But Hamlet feels that he cannot find peace even in death because of his obligations to his father, the future of his country, and the overwhelming responsibilities that press down on him. Therefore, he feels he must continue living. To keep living, he must kill his uncle, punish his mother, and restore the country. This burden of politics, family, morality, and responsibility suffocates him, which is why he says, "To be or not to be, that is the question." Hamlet's tragedy lies in the fact that he's given an impossible mission to complete. He's forced to move forward with a burden he can't bear. Eventually, Hamlet does kill someone, and this moment is crucial. His long-suppressed emotions and unfulfilled decisions finally break free. In this scene, Hamlet confronts his mother, revealing the truth about his father's ghost. The queen says, "Hamlet, you've greatly offended your father." Hamlet responds, "Mother, you've greatly offended my father." The queen is shocked and says, "Don't answer me with such nonsense." Hamlet retorts, "Go away, don't question me with such nonsense." At this confrontation, Polonius, Ophelia's father, is hiding behind the curtain, eavesdropping. He's still trying to spy on Hamlet and report back to the new king. Hamlet discovers Polonius hiding and stabs through the curtain, killing him. Polonius's death leads Ophelia into even greater tragedy. At this point, Hamlet, tormented by his quest for revenge, finally reveals the truth to his mother. He can't help but criticize her, comparing his father's noble appearance to his uncle's corruption. He says, "His hair like the sun's rays, his forehead like a god's, his eyes as commanding as a warrior, and his figure like a celestial messenger. And my uncle, who is now his mother's husband, is like a rotting ear of corn, ruining his robust brother. He believes that his mother's marriage to his uncle is like abandoning a great mountain for a pitiful spot, showing a lack of vision. Hamlet continuously accuses his uncle and his mother, leading her to pain and repentance. The queen finally cries out, "Hamlet, stop. You've made me see the black stains in my soul, and your words cut like knives. Please stop." At this moment, the ghost of King Hamlet appears again, but the queen cannot see him. The ghost comes to urge Hamlet to pursue revenge against the true murderer without harming his mother. The ghost says, "Don't forget, I am here to sharpen your resolve, which is about to waste away." The ghost sees Hamlet's hesitation and his difficulty in taking action. He encourages Hamlet but also tells him to comfort his mother, whose soul is in turmoil. "Go and speak to her," says the ghost. "Soft-hearted people are easily influenced by fantasies." The ghost remains gentle towards his former wife, and Hamlet's mother begins to repent, not turning into an informant. Her response helps Hamlet to eventually carry out his revenge. Hamlet's most compelling trait is his hesitation and passivity. He struggles with completing what he set out to do. Once all truths are revealed, Hamlet's revenge becomes inevitable. The queen covers up Polonius's death, saying it was an accident. Even with this, his uncle Claudius remains anxious and deceitfully insists on sending Hamlet to England for his safety, which is a plot to have Hamlet killed. Claudius has written a letter to the English king, asking him to execute Hamlet to eliminate the threat. At this point, the fragile Ophelia can no longer bear the fact that the man she loves, Prince Hamlet, has gone mad. Now she can't accept that her father has been killed by Hamlet. Overwhelmed by the shock, Ophelia goes mad herself, truly mad, and eventually heads towards suicide. Ophelia's death is profoundly tragic. The loss of life is inherently heavy, but there's a certain aesthetic in her demise that's unforgettable, much like Lin Dayu's flower burial. Ophelia's death has been depicted in various artworks and performance art, paying tribute to her tragic end. In the original text, Shakespeare writes, "By a brook, there was a willow that bent its branches into the mirror-like water." Ophelia weaves strange garlands from cowslips, nettles, daisies, and long purples, flowers that honest women call dead men's fingers, but which a rude shepherd calls by another name. She climbs a branch that hangs over the stream, intending to hang her garland. At that moment, a malicious branch breaks, causing her to fall into the water with her flowers. Her clothes spread out, momentarily floating like a mermaid. She sings old songs, seemingly unaware of the danger as if she's always lived in the water. But soon, her clothes become waterlogged, and this poor girl, her song unfinished, sinks into the mud. Hamlet loves Ophelia, but he loses her because he's consumed by his quest for revenge, losing his love in the process. Shakespeare lets this delicate woman sing sweet songs and drift away with her garland. Meanwhile, Hamlet, en route to England, learns of King Claudius's plot and sees the letter. He devises a plan to escape and return to Denmark to complete his revenge. However, upon returning, he first encounters Ophelia's funeral. Hamlet is utterly devastated. He thought he could push her away during his revenge, but the truth always comes to light, and Ophelia is no longer there. Once she's gone, you've missed her for life. At Ophelia's funeral, Hamlet declares, "Who can bear such heavy sorrow? What words of mourning could make the planet stop? It is I, Prince Hamlet of Denmark." He then jumps into the grave, saying, "I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers' love combined could not equal mine for her." What would he do for her? Hamlet says he would weep for her, fight for her, fast for her, tear his own body apart, drink a whole vat of vinegar, and eat a crocodile for her. He would build a tomb as high as heaven itself for her. His words are an outpouring of genuine emotion. But Hamlet knows well that sweet love and ruthless revenge cannot coexist. Love will always be an obstacle to revenge. Ophelia will never know Hamlet's true feelings, and she'll never feel his love. But Ophelia's brother, Laertes, comes seeking vengeance, like the grim reaper himself. Laertes challenges Hamlet to a duel because Hamlet killed his father and because his father's death led to Ophelia's tragic end. Laertes hates Hamlet deeply. Laertes is a fiery character. The new king stirs him up, telling Laertes that Hamlet is responsible for his father's death and Ophelia's suicide. This makes Laertes vow revenge. To kill Hamlet, he plans to use deceitful tactics in their duel, with poisoned arrows and poisoned wine. In the original text, Laertes says, "I'm willing to do this. To achieve my revenge, I'll also poison my arrows. I've bought a deadly poison from an apothecary. If the arrow's tip touches him and even scratches his skin, it will be fatal. No remedy can save him. I'll dip the arrowhead in this poison, and if I wound him, Hamlet will die." The king further incites Laertes, saying, "To ensure success, we should come up with another fail-safe plan. Here's one. While you're fighting him, make sure you wear him out. When he's thirsty and needs a drink, I'll have a cup of poisoned wine ready for him. Even if he escapes your poisoned arrow, just a sip of the wine will achieve our goal." Under this conspiracy, the duel begins. Laertes' weapon is coated with deadly poison, and the new king is sure that Hamlet will surely die. However, an unexpected event occurs. The queen accidentally drinks the poisoned wine. Meanwhile, Laertes wounds Hamlet with his sword. In the struggle, their swords are exchanged, and Hamlet uses the poisoned sword to wound Laertes. Both men are poisoned, like a wretched bird falling into its trap, harming others only to end up harming themselves. At this point, Hamlet realizes something is wrong with the queen. He asks, "What's happened to the queen?" The king replies, "She fainted at the sight of the blood." Then the queen says, "No, no, that cup, my dear Hamlet, that cup. I am poisoned." The queen dies on the spot, and Hamlet immediately understands the treacherous plot behind it. He exclaims, "The foul conspiracy. Lock the doors. Conspiracy. Find out who's responsible." As the doors are locked, Laertes, dying on the ground, confesses to Hamlet the king's manipulation and the entire scheme. Hamlet, with his last strength, kills the king, his uncle Claudius, and avenges himself, dying in the process. Thus, Hamlet's tragedy reaches its peak. Almost all the main characters in the play are dead: those who loved, those who hated, the just and the unjust. From a carefree prince to a vengeful warrior, Hamlet is a uniquely crafted character by Shakespeare. He's not real, but many see their reality reflected in him. So, if everyone is dead by the end, why should we still care? It's because, in the end, life is about the inevitable beginning and ending, with only the unpredictable process in between. The only thing we truly have is the process. Since the silent film era, Hamlet has been adapted into 36 different versions in various languages and countries. It is a prototype, much like Romeo and Juliet, which represents the archetype of lovers thwarted by fate. The archetype created by Hamlet is also repeatedly honored. Disney's classic animated film The Lion King uses the framework of Hamlet, but with the story set in the animal kingdom. It's a version of the prince's revenge story in an animal world. We've also discussed the story of The Banquet. The reason Hamlet is constantly reinterpreted, I think, is due to Shakespeare's view on fate. Human misfortune cannot be blamed on external randomness because life can often be quite mundane. Not everyone encounters dramatic highs and lows, but even in the most ordinary days, human nature and choices play a role. Even a small incident can lead to discomfort and tears, which is a reflection of our nature. This nature guides us step by step toward our end. Victor Hugo once said that Hamlet is as real as each of us, but greater. In the end, through revenge, fulfilling his mission, and the immense tragedy, Hamlet becomes a giant, yet he remains a real person. Hamlet is not you or me specifically, but represents all of us. He is not one individual, but humanity itself. Looking at the mutual support structure of the Chinese character, Run, we find our character, our stories, and our destinies. That might be the answer. There are 1,000 Hamlets in 1,000 people's eyes.